So I'm John Kinsey, the Director of Ecological Services at Plateau Land and Wildlife Management. We're out here today with James Hall of Hill Country Conservancy, just surveying the area and getting ready to start a pig trapping campaign. So today we're out here evaluating damage and determining appropriate places to begin pre-baiting across the property. I've been researching and controlling wild pigs across the globe for more than a decade. One of my primary roles was leading research in novel control techniques for wild pigs. We really haven't had anything innovative come about as far as tools go for helping landowners manage pigs on their properties outside of about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, the introduction of the Pig Brig trap system to the market. Now, the Pig Brig is a corral trap, like most other corral traps. What sets it apart, though, are a few things. One, I could actually set the Pig Brig where I'm standing right here. We're in some pretty dense habitat, actually in a spring, so I wouldn't set it where I am standing right here, but I could, right? So we're in a place where I wouldn't be able to get most traditional corral traps down here physically. Definitely couldn't get a box trap down here physically, but this is where the damage is happening. This is where the sensitive ecosystems are, and this is the point where we really need to be controlling the damage. So the fact that the Pig Brig weighs approximately 55 pounds, was designed to be strapped on my back and taken into dense vegetative areas, just lends itself to trapping and controlling damage in these sensitive ecosystems. So follow along with us as we move through this systematic approach to trapping feral pigs on this property. Then we're going to introduce you to the Pig Brig itself, all the components, how to set it up, some tips and tricks and how to use it most appropriately, all the way through the end where we've trapped pigs and we're removing them from Hill Country Conservancy's Pecan Springs Karst Preserve. So what was the final straw? What made y'all decide to go ahead and make the phone call over here to Plateau and see if there's something we could do to help y'all out with the, controlling the pig population on the property?
Well, we, as a nonprofit, a small staffed nonprofit, we have limitations with our time and with our funding. And so anybody can come out here and shoot pigs recreationally or from a management perspective, and I could do that. But we were looking for a meaningful impact, a meaningful way to control the numbers of pigs out here and reduce their destruction on the property. So we needed to find something, partner with somebody who knew what they were doing and also shared the passion that we have for the land. And we knew, we just know Plateau is the right route for that. They're in the area and we share a lot of landowner clients. And so the option to trap pigs on the property is just a very meaningful way to do it.
So now we're going to walk you through the components of a Pig Brig trap so that you understand what we're using and what we're referencing as we're walking through the setup process later on. So first and foremost, we have the net here, and it's a 20-foot diameter net. It's a double layered net. So you have the exterior base net, which is a smaller netting, and then you have an interior bore shield, which is a little bit thicker, has a higher tensile strength, a higher drop strength as well, just to prevent pigs from damaging the net once they realize they're trapped in there. Now, next we have our T-post mounts, and there's 10 of these that you come in the trap because there's 10 T-posts in a set. So these go at the top of the T-post, approximately 1 to 2 inches from the top of the T-post. We'll hook the double hook cam straps to those mounts and through the top rope of the net, and then we'll anchor these to the ground to create tension of the top rope on the net. Then we have our ground anchors. These are wolf fang ground anchors, and they come with this little drive rod here. And the way these work is there's a slot in the tip of that drive rod, and it just hooks straight onto this ground anchor. And we take our hammer here and we drive that into the ground. Once that's done, we hook the second hook of our cam strap to the ground anchor, and that's what creates our tension from the top rope to the outside. Once that's set up and we're ready to go into catch mode, we've got our interior ground anchors. These go inserted into D-rings that are on the skirt of the net. And the function of this is to hold the bottom of the net in place. I mentioned that pigs stand on the net. When they're in there, keeps them from lifting the net and pushing it out. This also serves the same purpose. Keeps the net grounded, keeps the net from being pushed out and pigs escaping the trap. You'll also need 10 T-posts, and the length of these T-posts are going to vary depending upon the soil you're in. Where we're here today is incredibly rocky, very limestone, not a whole lot of soil, honestly. So we're only going to use 6.5 foot T-posts. We're going to drive these things approximately 18 inches into the ground. Along with all your hardware components, you have two other pieces that are critical to your success in setting up the trap. One is the user guide. Now, mine's a little beat up. I reference it every time I set this trap up, even though I've done this hundreds of times. It's incredibly useful. Pig Brig did a great job of making this step by step. There's pictures. The instructions are the easiest instructions to follow. It's fantastic. Do not lose this. The second piece that you absolutely do not want to lose is your measuring strap. Now, as you walk through the user guide and you're setting this up, they're going to talk about specific measurements away from the center of the trap or away from the exterior T-posts. Well, instead of carrying a tape measure around, all you got to do is have this thing here. And we'll walk you through what these measurements mean as we're setting up the trap. But as you can see, I've got a black mark here that tells me where to put my ground anchors. A few tools that you need that don't come with your Pig Brig is going to be a hammer to drive your ground anchors, a 1/2 inch wrench or a socket to tighten the nuts on your T-post mounts, a T-post driver, and of course your T-posts. Those things do not come with the trap. Everything else here is included in your trap system. So those are the components of the Pig Brig trap system. If you have any questions, my contact information is going to be below. Feel free to reach out anytime. I'm happy to answer any questions. Now we're going to get into how to set this trap up. All right, so we're here at one of our most active sites here at Pecan Springs. We're going to go ahead and set the trap here first. The first step in setting a Pig Brig is to measure your T-posts. Now, it's critically important that your T-posts protrude 5 feet out of the ground. So these are 6.5 foot T-posts. So we'll drive them 18 inches into the ground to leave 5 feet standing out. Conveniently, Pig Brig has marked that 5 feet on your measuring strap. So you just hook the orange end to the top of your T-post and you measure down to the red mark on the strap. I like to use a piece of duct tape or electrical tape and just mark right there. Now I know how far to drive my T-post into the ground. So the next thing we're going to do is find the center of our trap. We want to keep the center of the trap marked throughout this process so you don't lose it, because through various parts of the setup process, we're going to measure from the center of the trap. So to maintain precise and accurate measurements, you want to make sure this is always marked. That's why I like to use these interior anchor stakes, because we're not really using these until the very end of the trap setup process. I used to use the drive rod, but we use the drive rod. I'm always pulling it in, taking it out. So this is just more convenient. Another key feature of your measuring strap is it tells you exactly where to drive your T-posts. So this black part of the strap is your initial T-post measuring strap. It is 10 feet long, so the trap is 20 feet in diameter. What I'm gonna do here is make sure that I chose an adequate center for the trap. So I'm gonna walk the entire circumference of the trap and make sure that I didn't encompass any vegetation or rocks or anything that I didn't intend to that could impede the setup process. All right, so we're measuring out to the first T-post. So it's the entire length of this black strap. And we wanna make sure that the strap is as close to the ground as possible at the center of the trap, all the way out. And pull it tight because this is a pretty precise measurement system they've got going. So Jack. One other important note about trap setup is when you're driving the T-posts, you want the knuckles of the T-post to be facing away from the center of the trap. Now we're gonna measure to the next post, and again, it's incredibly simple and user-friendly. You take the end of the orange strap portion of your measuring strap, hook it to the base of your T-post, pull it taut to the orange as well as the black from the center, and it gives you a precise measurement so that your T-posts are equidistant all the way around the trap. So look, we've got the first knuckle on this T-post is right at the top of it, right? So that's not where we want to put it, because we're going to have to put the top rope of the trap over here and get the cam strap hook through it as well. So we want to go a little bit further down and just get it finger tight. And if we look at the first T-post, we put the T-post mount on right here. It'll illustrate the difference in distance of this knuckle from the top. If you come around here and check this out. So in that last T-post, the knuckle was up here. This one's down here. So that's why we just want to try to pay attention, use a little common sense when you're putting these things together. When it comes to these little rules, the first knuckle is not a tried and true rule. You want to pay attention and make it equidistant all the way across. We've got our T-post mounts on all 10 T-posts. We're going to go ahead and stretch the net out and hang it over the T-posts. Now there's a few key points to keep in mind as you're doing this. The first tip about hanging your net is to always start at the seam of the trap. Yeah, the trap itself is 360 degrees. It's a circle, but it also has a seam in it, designed initially to be able to encompass vegetation in the trap. The trap is originally designed to be hung on trees in a jungle, not strapped to T-posts. The design has been made more user-friendly over the years, but the seam is there in case, say you're trapping in East Texas in a pine plantation and the vegetation is really close together. Well, now you can take the seam of the trap out, open it up, and encompass vegetation inside the trap. So you always want to start at the seam because there's two pieces of the top rope that you have to get over the T-post. And as you start stretching the trap out, the tension gets really tight. And it becomes much more difficult to get both portions of the top rope over the T-post. So you always want to start with the seam of the trap. There's a little metal clip on the top rope ever so often, and that's marking where the net goes over the T-post. There's typically a little hole, a piece of the net is clipped there, so it's easier to get over the T-post for you. Again, just finger tight for now. We'll come back with our 1/2 inch wrench and tighten those down. once we've got our cam straps through the netting as well. We can work opposite of each other. Right? If you're putting it together with a team, work opposite of each other. Start at the seam and then work your way around to the opposite side. You don't want to start on opposite sides of the trap, then you'd be working against each other. All right, so the next step in the installation process is to go ahead and hook your cam straps to the T-post mount and the top rope of the Pig Brig trap. To do that, this is why I told you only finger tight. We're gonna go ahead and loosen these back up. Get them as loose as you can without dropping the nut. Go ahead and work your hook through the T-post mount and then stretch that top rope out and hook the cam strap through the top. Now, it is important that we always hook from the bottom up. We don't want to hook from the top down. Will the trap still work if you hook from the top down? Absolutely. Is there an incremental increase in the probability of trap failure? Yes. Probably not a significant increase in probability, but it's just one of those insurance policies. A little tip, always hook from the bottom up. So we've got all of our T-post mounts on the posts, the net stretched over the T-posts, and the cam strap hooks are through both the T-post mount and the top rope of the trap. Now I'm gonna go ahead and fasten the midline cam straps to each of the T-posts. That's these cam straps here. I'm gonna fasten the midline cam straps to each of the T-posts. It's just a strap that goes through the base net, not the bore shield. You can see it's holding the base net away from the bore shield. And it's just gonna strap right around the T-post. And we're not gonna tighten it up all the way. We're gonna leave, 3 or 4 inches or so worth of slack in it. Best way to judge this is just, I can stick my fist through it, so we're good to go. We're gonna do that all the way around the trap. So in the next step, we're gonna show you what to do with the other end of your cam strap. We're gonna drive our ground anchors, the Fang ground anchors. As mentioned before, this measuring strap that I have on the ground here is incredibly important. Don't lose that piece of equipment. We're going to measure out to the black line on the orange part of the measuring strap from your exterior T-posts. But as you're doing that, you want to line your measuring strap up with the T-post directly opposite the trap, right? Because this trap works on equal and opposite tension. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's important to have a direct path from ground anchor to T-post to opposing ground anchor. So once you get it measured out and make sure that you're lined up correctly, you're going to take your drive rod, and there's a groove in the tip of your drive rod. We're just going to set the ground anchor inside of that groove. We're going to take our hammer. We're going to drive the ground anchor into the ground all the way to the orange marking on your drive rod. So once you get your ground anchor into the ground to a point where it's going to hold, instead of just taking the hook in your cam strap and hooking through the eye of the ground anchor, we're going to take the wire and hook it through the eye of the hook on the cam strap, and then hook the cam strap through the eye, put some tension on it, and that way we don't have any chance of the cam strap hook slipping off of the ground anchor. Okay, so now that we have our cam straps hooked to both the T-post mount, the top rope, and our ground anchors, it's time to put some tension on the top rope of the trap. Tension on the top rope is incredibly important. Two of the most important things about the setup of this trap is that the top of the net is 5 feet above the ground, and that you've got as much tension on the top rope as you possibly can have. So as we're creating that tension, I'm not here by myself today, I've got a team, but if I was by myself, I would pull on this T-post and then go walk across to the opposite T-post and put tension on that one so that I'm not working in a complete circle. Again, the trap works off of equal and opposite tension. So I'm gonna pull on this one. I've got Jack across the trap from me. He's gonna pull and tighten his cam strap at the same time. And then we're gonna work our way around the entire trap. All right, go. We're gonna measure out from the center of the trap to put our anchor stakes in. So we put the strap back out, and we've got 5 internal anchor stakes, and they all go in these silver loops that are attached to the skirt of the net. So we're gonna measure out using the black side of the measuring strap out to the white line. Try to pull it taut. We're gonna drive our anchor stakes through this loop at that white line. Now we're not going to drive these in straight up and down. We're going to put them at approximately 45-degree angle, angling into the trap. Okay. So the purpose of these internal anchor stakes, when a pig walks under the trap, this link slides up the anchor stake, and then the weight of the link makes it fall directly back down to the ground, holds the skirt of the trap on the ground, and then also prevents pigs from being able to push out of the trap, because once it's hooked, we're not going back out, right? So we've got 5 of these. They typically protrude 18 inches or so out of the ground. We're just gonna work all of those around the entire trap. Okay, you see how the skirt of the net is a little elevated here? And the bore shield is not laying on the ground. What we really like to see is the skirt to be perfectly flat on the ground, and the bore shield, the sticker part of the net, to be perfectly even with the ground. Now, this is a new trap, and sometimes the net material hasn't quite stretched out enough to lay flat at 5 feet. So there's a couple things you can do until the net material stretches out. You can just hang it for a few days, let it come to its full, get its full elasticity and stretch all the way out. Or you can stretch the net out yourself, and that's what I'm gonna do here today. The other thing you can do is, until your net stretches out completely, maybe not have it exactly 5 feet above the ground. Eyeball it, see what it looks like, move it down a couple inches to make sure that it's laying flat on the ground. Now, you don't want the bore shield laying on the ground. You just want the bottom line of the bore shield on the ground. So don't lower it too low. But what I'm gonna do here today is I'm just gonna walk around the base of the net, put a little bit of my body weight on it, stretch the net out, and get it closer to what it needs to be looking like for us to confidently trap pigs. And the reasoning for this is, you want the pigs to be looking at the bore shield. It's more of a visible barrier, A. B, it's a really tough material, and it's designed to prevent pigs from chewing out of the trap. So if you just see the base net there, it's not quite as heavy a material. If they start chewing on that, there's a higher probability that they may get out of the trap. So we want to make sure that everything is lying flat and looks good before we set the trap down into catch mode. So the first thing we're gonna do is take the interior stakes out of the rings and free up the skirt of the trap. We're gonna put the stakes back in so we don't lose our spot. So the second thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our midline cam straps off. We're gonna remove them from the net entirely and take them off of the T-posts. And we're gonna use those to lift the net up and hold them off of the ground so that pigs can walk underneath the trap and access the bait freely. Finicky creatures, you know, there's some pigs are, some pigs aren't. All right, so this is the Pig Brig in conditioning mode. This allows free access to the bait walking under the trap, so they pretty much don't even know they're walking into a trap. We'll set it like this for a few days. Unfortunately, there's no real script for these kinds of things. We're gonna monitor the behavior via still photos as well as video and pay attention to how they're interacting with the trap. If they're coming in freely and eating with no issues for multiple days consistently and consecutively, then we'll go ahead and drop this trap down into catch mode and remove this sounder from the preserve. So true to form, we ended up having to monitor this trap and this sounder for multiple weeks. We encountered pretty much every challenge that you can imagine in pig trapping. We had incredibly neophobic pigs. Every time we introduced something new to their environment, they went away for multiple days, and we had to keep baiting and just be patient and wait for them to come back. Quite a bit of inclement weather. We had multiple flooding events, saturated soils that didn't allow us to get to the trap site, along with washed out roadways. We had multiple opportunities to rush the process and end up not catching the entire sounder most likely, but we didn't. We stayed patient, perseverant, and those are characteristics and behaviors of a successful pig trapper, no matter what trap style you're using. The biggest lesson here isn't about the trap. It's about patience, discipline, and understanding pig behavior. We identified 21 pigs in this targeted sounder, and we were able to remove them all in a single trapping event. This is why whole sounder trapping is so effective. If you leave a few educated pigs behind, it often makes future trapping much more difficult. Trust the process, stay the course. If you do, you'll dramatically increase your chance of removing the entire sounder instead of just a few pigs.
James Hall with Hill Country Conservancy. This is our Pig Brig trap that Plateau Land and Wildlife Management has been kind enough to let us use, and we had some great success today. We had 21 pigs in this trap this morning, and they're all dispatched and dumped, and now we're going to set it up again, see if we can catch some more. But it's a huge success. It worked incredibly. There were some big pigs in this trap, and they were not happy to see us, but they could not. This thing did not budge at all. It did wonders. So. Great success. We're super appreciative of Plateau to let us give it a shot, and we're going to keep using it.